sit next to me, or you just?
I know. I think I'm only here to keep you and Jim from fighting.
It's always a good place to be.
Every now and then they do use it. I used to be a cop.
All right. So I guess there'll be no sparring between the Senate and the House today, right? Okay. It being 9 o'clock or shortly thereafter, we will call the committee of conference to order on Senate Bill 221. The biggest differences from the Senate side is that the Senate wanted to always look back to presidential elections, which would minimize the number of people who are purged from the list. My experience as a moderator would tell me that's the wise thing to do. The House will let them state their position, and then we'll go on.
Okay, the House's position is that the annual voter roll verification should be annual, but we should extend the look back period 1 year. Obviously, that increases the frequency. With the advent of the voter roll database, this is no longer the arduous process that it used to be. It's no longer really a manual process. It's something that the Secretary of State actually can produce the list annually, and as we know, accurate and healthy voter rolls are a very important part of voter integrity, and it's very important to the House that we get something that looks much better than every 10 years, looking back 4 years.
And I don't disagree, with the House at all, that it's a computer application now that we can go and do this. Again, from being a moderator for the number of years I was, that I would get people after the purge come in and say, but I voted in the last presidential election and I, never got a 30-day letter and so, that is the hang up. We don't have a presidential election in between now and when another bill could be put in. So we are still looking at this. And I think that the House concurs that we will meet again on this, and we'll set the date. I don't know if Deb is coming in or not coming in, but.
Are you suggesting we recess this committee of conference to meet on a later date?
Yeah. Okay. I just was trying to find a date. If we'll hold for just a minute, and I'll go see if I can. All right, so back here Wednesday, 9 o'clock, and we'll either concur, not concur, or do something different. All right? Comments?
Yes, if I could just make a couple of quick comments about since I was the original proposal of the House position on the annual thing, is just the mobility of and the population growth, and also the turnover of students every 4 years, either due to graduation or if you look at the numbers from the Department of Education, the number of students that come in 1 year and then leave after that first year is somewhere between 35% and 60% at any of the colleges and universities within New Hampshire. So and that's out of state. So, so there is, I think, good reason with the changing in populations, the turnover of students, the mobility due to job opportunities and things like that, that caused me to push for this initial annual verification. So I just, as we consider that going into Wednesday, I'd like to make sure that that's understood. Thank you.
And I can understand, especially the students. But if the 30-day letters were sent out with return receipt requested, or should not return receipt, but, that if it is undeliverable, to get the message back, and that was a criteria for a 30-day letter, I could do that one, which would get us closer. And again, conversations can go on, among the caucuses, between now and Wednesday morning at 9. Anyone else? Anything before we adjourn? All right, well, I guess we are actually technically in recess until 9 a.m. Wednesday morning here. Thank you. All right,
I think you are. Which bill are we going to now?
we're on 213. All right, so we'll call the committee conference on Senate Bill 213 to order. And in preparation for this meeting, certainly the Senate wants their position on 213, and there was a draft amendment that I had produced, and that draft amendment is 2025-2740S. Representative Quayle, when he reviewed it, said that if we go to page 5 on line 32, there is a may that should be changed to a shall.
Do we have a copy of this somewhere?
If you don't, you do know. I believe it's in there, but if not, it's there. What this does is goes back to the Senate's language about the form where they're filling out the application. It takes out the words more likely than not, which should still be the legal criteria, but it takes it out of that form, leaves in a very clear definition of, if you are not registered in New Hampshire, you have to provide all 4 proofs of identity. I call it the acid test. If you are previously registered somewhere in New Hampshire, then you have to prove identity and domicile. And if you're registered in that polling place where you're at requesting the absentee ballot for, then you have to prove your identity. The House is considering that. I'll let them speak to that. And I know that we have also done some work on the House revised section, and I'll ask Senator Lang to describe that.
Thank you. Again, based on the bill that was amended and sent over by the House, I had one change I was requesting, and that is there's a concern that public employees, police chiefs, fire chiefs, planning board members, if there's a warrant article, say, for a new fire station, or there's a new zoning board issue, the issue is a citizen comes up to the chief and says, hey, why do you need a new fire station? That this law would gag them from even talking to the citizen about it. And so what the amendment does is create a carve-out for that employee to be able to answer the question of citizens when they come, whether it's a planning board member on a zoning issue, whether it's a fire chief on a bond issue for a fire truck or something else. So the new language would read under section of the bill as sent to us, under section 4, where it says nothing in this section shall prohibit, and we'd create a new subletter F that says public employees who are appointed to office by the chief executive or legislative body of the public employer from providing factual information in response to requests from public concerning their official function. So again, it allows these public employees who have an item on there when a citizen comes, they're able to respond to the citizen and not just have to say, I can't tell you, and walk away.
In other words, they'd be able to answer the question, are you sure we need a new fire truck?
Yeah. Or why do we need a new fire truck, and be able to answer about the age of the old fire truck or something like that.
Representative Barrett?
Yeah, I'd like to thank the Senate for considering the House's anti-electioneering bill by public employees. It is a concession to make this. I think it's one that the House is comfortable making, but it is, I believe the underlying bill is absolutely necessary to curtail some of the abuses that we've seen. It certainly was not the intent to stifle budget discussions like that, but it is designed to stifle blatant and sometimes outright partisan electioneering by public employees. So it's a concession we're willing to make. As to the amendment, Senator Gray, you proposed, as you mentioned, Representative Quayle did find some minor language changes that aren't, I would consider them largely substantive, just a may instead of a shall in one spot. And it certainly is a position I think the House is willing to accede to. So if you wanted to put these two together, I think one was in your bill, one was in my bill, so it should be acceptable to the House's rules to do that and move forward.
That would certainly be my intent, is that we would have out of this committee we would have a new amendment drafted which would incorporate both of the House and the Senate's position.
Thank you, Senator. I have two questions, one relating to the electioneering portion of this bill as we hope to amend it. You mentioned an amendment basically exempting certain employees who are appointed, like a fire chief. Has that actually been written out? Is
You
that,
should have it in front of you.
okay, good.
Deb's passed it out. There was some
Okay.
typos in the amendment as it was drafted. It said of public employers instead of public employees, and it said
Okay.
chief executive.
That was easy. I see it now. And I have another very minor wording point, and I might be mistaken on this, but I'm looking on line 31 on page 1 of your amendment, 2740S, at the very end where it says, I understand that I may only make such a request 14 days after the filing period for candidates. Could that be misconstrued by someone to think they only have 1 day on which to do it? This is why I'm hesitant to, but do you think that could be misconstrued? You can only do it 14 days after that. Could you say 14 days or more
We
after?
do have an attorney on the committee.
Okay,
Who did not write this bill? Oh, you would like me to answer that question?
I want you to at least read it and, you know,
I will give it a read. I will give it a read.
all right. So I'm going to take a break on this one for a minute because we've got the other ones
Sure.
to give you a couple of minutes.
Okay, well, I have other comments besides
Okay.
answering that one question if
Sure.
I can. I just want to make clear that, I don't think we need either of these bills. I think we're going to make it harder to make it vote, be able to vote absentee. We had hearings on both of these bills and heard both on 213 and on 340 that's been attached about the sort of logistical difficulties that I don't feel like these amendments address. We don't want to make it harder for people to be able to exercise their right to vote absentee, which I do think there's concerns about how is an ID provided, and is this going to be a situation where essentially we are asking people that have the biggest burdens already to vote to be engaging in additional burdens. And I know we've talked about notaries and mobile notaries and all this, but I just don't feel like those concerns have been addressed. And additionally, in terms of attaching 340 to this bill, we had many concerns raised on this in committee including that the language was too broad and sort of created a lot of ambiguity about what public employees could and couldn't do under the circumstances. And so I appreciate the revised language from Senator Lang, but I don't think that fully addresses the situations we heard about, in committee, which included, can people comment on, sort of the conditions under which they're teaching? Is it too hot or cold in a building? Are they able to, sort of have opinions about the equipment they need to do their job? I think some of the examples you've provided, while helpful, are just not all inclusive and don't address all the concerns that we have with both of these pieces of legislation. So just want to make that clear.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so we're going to hold on that one for just a minute, and we'll open the committee conference on Senate Bill 218. Certainly, the Senate still does want to get rid of the outer envelopes, but we're not, at least I am not, diametrically opposed to the amendment that the House put on there in line 24 on page 1 and line 23 on page 2, where it says that they're providing copies of the documentation required by, and then lists the statute. I want the word applicable, copies of the applicable documentation. Again, if somebody is already registered in the state. They don't need to prove citizenship and age, okay? So the word applicable in both of those situations will clean up that language so that, you know, they would need to do that. Certainly, there is a larger discussion going on, and Representative Berry, I'll let you speak to your concerns about doing away with the outer envelopes.
About the outer envelope, the House's concern has in the position of the House has always been that as much of Election Day should happen on Election Day as possible. It should just be like that. It's operated like that in the state forever, and it should continue to do that. So it's not something that we are entirely closed off to. There are certain aspects of it which I think are useful. Obviously, the bill we resubmitted, our amendment is about registration with an absentee device. It has come to the House's attention that there are clerks in the state that think that you can register to vote absentee with no ID, which is not my interpretation of the law, but is unfortunately theirs. And it's definitely something that the House is interested in closing up, because the registration process and the voting process should be as similar for all voters as possible and where applicable. And as to your, Senator Gray, concern about what language of inserting applicable, that is not an issue for the House.
Okay. The issue of whether or not we're going to do this is still in flux right now. Unless anybody else wants to speak, I would like to try to resolve that, have the House and the Senate look at their positions, see if we can come to a compromise and an amendment that can go forward. Is there anybody that'd like to speak before I recess us until that Wednesday at 9 o'clock? Seeing none, Senate Bill 218, we are recessing to Wednesday at 9 o'clock. Open the hearing on Senate Bill 287, I should say the committee conference on 287. And the Senate is willing to accede to the House's position, as long as you are.
On 287.
287.
Well, I am unwilling to accede to the House position on 287.
Okay.
And I'd like to make a few points about this. I think, there's been a lot of information distributed about this that just basically creates issues, I think, for the clerks. And I think it's important to talk about the practical realities of what you guys are imposing. This is, again, just further ways that we're making it harder for people to vote. What we need is for voter registration to mean something. If someone is registered to vote and able to vote, then they need to be able to vote without presenting further ID. You're also asking our clerks to sort of have, on hand records of people's IDs, scan and print them. Are they subject to right to know? What are the privacy concerns here? I think there's a lot of question about just sort of how practically this would move forward. There are voters with disability who can't come to a clerk's office with ID, and so how are we trying to address that? I just think this has been rushed through, and it's yet another attempt to make it harder for people who have the legal right to vote to exercise that.
Certainly, we know that the clerks, have gone to the nursing homes in regularity, and I know that Rochester also with disabled people have gone to people's homes. So I don't share all of the concerns that my colleague does, and the Senate in a 2-3 is willing to accede, and we'll see if there's any changes made to do that. But House, would you like to speak?
My father was a salesman his entire life. He worked in telecom, and he told me, "Son, when you've made a sale, shut up." So I think we will just do that, and we thank the Senate for acceding to our position.
All right, and with that, we adjourn this one, and we're back to 213, I think. And we'd ask the good senator to read the portion that Representative Quayle talked about. And,
Senator, I haven't had a chance to review this, so.
okay. So we'll adjourn this one also to the Wednesday at 9. All right. So we are in recess till Wednesday at 9. Thank you.
All right, it's 11 o'clock. I'm going to open the Committee of Conference on Senate Bill 118. Okay, so before you, you have the side-by-side of Senate Bill 118 and the amended version of that came out of the House. The overall intent was to provide some pathways and yeah, I'm gonna let Senator Birdsell explain it because it's her bill.
All right, so what 118 did, it was a request from DHHS in order to give personal needs allowance for our nursing home residents to reflect their Social Security increases on an annual basis rather than a five-year basis. The second thing it did, when there were at Hampstead Hospital, when there were employees that were state employees, they were given a sign-on bonus. So in the middle of that, what happened is they went to Dartmouth Hitchcock, but there was still the bonuses are prorated for the time period that they were actually state employees. And then the third thing it did, it allows for Hampstead Hospital to have a maintenance fund, because now Dartmouth Hitchcock is going to be paying rent to about $3 million a year. So that's going into a fund for any maintenance that they have. What you guys added to it was cannabis, cultivate cannabis for therapeutic uses, and that's, to me, not acceptable for our elderly, so.
That was a passionate issue with some on our committee and even some in the House, and I know I think it was HB 53, went to the Senate, and I know it got killed, and came up in committee caucus, and we discussed it, and I'm not surprised at your reaction. In fact, it was a rather immediate reaction, Senator, as we talked later that day. So is that the only change, I think?
Yeah.
That you're taking out HB 53?
That would be HB 53. You did tweak it a little bit, which HHS asked for, and what we would think about, what we would want to do is accede to the House position without the cannabis piece in it.
The other half of the Hampstead delegation agrees.
Okay. Representative Drew, do you want to comment at all? I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, I don't want to.
No, go ahead. I was going to ask if anyone else wanted to discuss it.
So I don't understand what the opposition is to the cannabis cultivation bill. This is qualified patients already in a program, allows them to grow a couple plants at home so that they don't have to travel to buy the cannabis. What is the issue?
Well, the issue is that the Senate ITL'd it. So we're not comfortable putting it through in something that is to help our elderly and our mental facility in Hampstead. As a Hampstead senator, if we killed it, it shouldn't be in there.
Why did you kill it?
I don't have the notes on that in front of me, but the position is ITL from the Senate, and that's that we're going to stick to that position.
It's my understanding, is part of it that the governor is opposed to this and would not, there could be a poison pill for this entire piece of legislation if it remained in there? Is that part of it, or?
Well, I think the underlying bill had nothing to do with cannabis. I mean,
No, I know.
And so I think that you're right in that, the Senate position on all cannabis this year, given that's in line with what the position of the Senate has been with a lot of cannabis related bills. 118 is clearly not have anything to do with cannabis, and for that to be attached to it really is undermining the intent of the bill.
And again, to Representative Drew's point, I'm wondering, the governor's position, did that figure in at all, do you know?
Well, the governor's position is she's not going to support anything that has to do with cannabis. So this will probably go down the tubes if it's on there.
She would probably veto the whole bill then.
I would think so.
I don't know if that helps you, Representative Drew.
I mean, I don't get it, but sure.
I mean, as a co-sponsor of the bill, myself, obviously I want to see, as much of it pass as possible, and particularly the nursing home feature. And Senator Bertzel, if I may, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, go ahead.
Kind of going on and on.
Absolutely.
I'm too used to sitting there.
I
instead of
know, I
here.
know, I know. We'll change that position later today.
Exactly. Senator Bertzel, you mentioned that you would accede to the House position, and can you clarify that, please, where you were going to do that?
Well, because apparently there were some tweaks that DHHS came in, and we have DHHS here if you want to have them come up and explain what the tweaks were. But they came in to do some adjustments and you did put those adjustments in there. So we want to keep those in there. So that's why we would accede to your position without the cannabis.
Sure. Mr. Chairman, do you have any objection if HHS wants to clarify?
No,
those?
go ahead.
I would hate, Mr. Williams, for you to have made this trip for nothing, so I want to make the most of your time.
And get your money's worth.
Chairman Rosefort and conferees in the House and the Senate, thank you very much. We had worked with the House Health Policy Committee with an amendment and also with the bill's sponsor, Senator Birdsell. You may recall that at the hearing, which the House eventually did adopt fully the amendment, that we had received information from Gopher relative to the use of certain funds. And it required us, because of the fact there were some restrictions regarding the ARPA funds originally and repayment, we worked on some minor changes that needed to take place as part of the amendment. It did not change the fiscal implications regarding the bill. It just provided flexibility to the department. The bill was also heard in House Finance. It had a full work session before Division 3, and also they adopted the exact same amendment. So we would request respectfully consideration for adopting the House position on this, because it is the version of the bill currently that is most helpful to the department. And I think I have Deputy Commissioner Marissa Hent, who might have just come into the room as well, who I would invite up to the table for any further comments. So their question is specifically about the amendment that was worked out very thoughtfully at the House Health Policy Committee, and that's certainly the position we would want to adhere to.
Okay. Thank you for refreshing my memory on that. I remember that now.
Any further questions? You're off the hook.
Thank you.
Thank you. House conferees, do we want to caucus at all? Or do we know what we want to do? Or sure.
Thank you.
And again, I defer to the chairman to recognize you.
No, go ahead.
Thank you, I'm sorry. I just wanted to comment on the fact,
You-
I turned it off. Just want to comment on the fact that the bill had a very strong support in the House, bipartisan vote. And I understand the very importance of the base bill for Hampstead and for our nursing home residents. So I'm hoping that we can figure out a way that we can maybe satisfy both. I would really hate to see the base bill die, but I do think we need to consider the role that the House took on that amendment and the fact that it was.
Refresh my memory, but I think it went through on consent, didn't it, in the
Yeah.
House?
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments, Senator?
I did, I was able to put it into the budget, and I think it'll survive, but I don't know. I'm concerned about the budget, whether it passes or not, which is why I asked to bring this to a committee conference in case it doesn't pass. At least the nursing home facilities and Hampstead Hospital will get what they need.
Again, I would ask of the House conferees, do we want to caucus at all before we offer our opinion, or?
Yeah, we're gonna caucus for a moment, and
Okay.
we'll be right back.
One second.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is there any way we could get an updated position from the governor? Can we contact the governor's office to get a yes or no if the cannabis amendment is in there, she will veto this bill? Or not?
Well,
Or
I don't
maybe-
know that that's the only reason the Senate is unwilling to support that provision.
I mean-
That's not the only reason why, right?
Correct. It's one of a few, but, the fact that the House, ITL'd it, I'm sorry, the Senate ITL'd it, yeah.
So they had to uphold the Senate position,
Understood.
so,
All right, we'll meet back here in a few minutes.
sure.
All right, welcome back.
Thanks for waiting.
Yes.
Sorry to keep you waiting. We are not prepared to make a decision right now.
Okay.
We were wondering if we could come back later this week.
Yeah, we can probably do that. I mean, I think that, I don't know what the, I mean, you know where we're at,
Oh, yeah, exactly.
and that's where we're at. I
And
mean,
that, and that's firm, no,
Yeah, no, I mean, the reality is, you know, here we are, the HHS committee, I mean, this came out of judiciary, the cannabis, you know, cannabis was a strong, this particular issue was a strong ITL out of a separate committee. So we're here to uphold that. We do recognize that the House did some good work in working with DHHS on some other issues related to this, but, you know, that's where we're at.
okay. All right, yeah, we'd like to, obviously, we don't want to wait till the last minute either, but perhaps, you know,
So maybe tomorrow, Wednesday?
Wednesday, yeah, why don't we say
Okay.
Wednesday? To the other conferees from the House, does that make sense?
That's
Wednesday?
acceptable for me.
Okay,
So we'll work to get that scheduled for Wednesday.
okay, you and I can talk, or whatever, and,
Yep.
that's the 18th, right?
Yep.
All right, thank you.
All right, with that, we'll recess until the 18th.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman, Senator Prentice, Senator Bertzel.
You're welcome.
Here's some.